Drop it on them random. Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, we're going to talk about who the greatest of all time is.
Let's get right to business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone. Classic album. Classic album. Come to Hip Hop Podcast. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Returning listeners, I appreciate you keep sharing. New listeners, welcome. Hope you enjoy what you're hearing today. Please know that this podcast is available everywhere where you can hear podcasts. So wherever you go to hear podcasts, wherever you might be listening, this podcast lives. So hit that subscribe button, leave a comment if you agree or disagree, and most importantly, share it with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Now, this is a Hip Hop Now podcast extra, but it's sort of like breaking news, but it's not. So let me tell you the story. I was online on Instagram, right? Just dumbing through Instagram, looking at all kinds of nonsense. This was earlier in November, right? And I follow a couple of rappers, and I see this one post, and I was like, what's this? And it kind of caught my eye, and I was wondering what was going on here. So I figured, I'll read it, and it was two photos in this joint. The post was coming from Big Daddy Kane, and he was posting about LL Cool J. Now, I don't know if Big Daddy Kane created this post or he took it from somewhere where he saw it on the internet. But this is what he had to say, and I'm going to read the actual post. Matter of fact, let's read the post or the picture. This is in the picture that he posted. Big Daddy Kane posted this. People use the term GOAT so loosely, but when we speak of hip-hop artists, here's who I consider the GOAT. There's a picture of LL Cool J. I'm not starting a debate, just expressing my views, and you are entitled to disagree. Hopefully, it's on your own damn IG, though. And then when you go to the second photo, it says this. I'm my favorite hip-hop lyricist. Dougie Fresh is my favorite hip-hop performer. Jay-Z is the most successful hip-hop artist in my opinion. However, when we say GOAT, we have to look at things collectively. Let's break down LL career. Great lyricist, great performer, multi-platinum sales, numerous number one hits, hip-hop sex appeal, victorious in hip-hop battles against many elites, not just one. That's not even mentioning his television success. Let's just keep it hip-hop. Now, I was like, whoa, did Big Daddy Kane create this? And I didn't know, so I looked down, I was like, yo, let me see what Big Daddy Kane says on here. And he tags LL Cool J and he says, shout out to the GOAT. Now, I don't know about you, but I found this very, very, very interesting. Obviously, a lot of people claim GOAT. LL Cool J claimed he even named the album after it. Greatest of all time. That's what LL said he is. He is the greatest of all time, right? A lot of people say Rakim is. Some people say KRS-One is. Some say Tupac is. Some say Jay-Z is. When Biggie died, some people were calling him the greatest of all time because of some of the attributes that we just named about LL. But who is the greatest of all time? Now, obviously, it's subjective, right? If you don't know what subjective means, you don't have to look into the clouds. It's just to say, right? It's a point of view thing. It's driven by a point of view, by individuals. So what you see, what I see, what they see can all be different, can all be the same, we can all call him the GOAT, but feel like he's the GOAT for different reasons. It's all a matter of your opinion, right? But when you're talking about the greatest of all time and you got to break it down to who is number one, I guess you got to feel like, well, we got to make a decision. So who gets the most votes for being the GOAT? Like, who is the MC that most people would say is the greatest of all times? Now, I have to say this. What I just read is somewhat convinced me that LL Cool J is the greatest of all time. Now, hold up. Before you go crazy, before you start to feel like some of your new rappers they aren't. We got to think about this, man. Now, when LL released that album, GOAT, I totally disagreed with him. Like, what? You're not the greatest of all time. Like, you're the most successful as far as longevity goes, but you're not the greatest of all time. And that's one thing I never really took away from LL, because what some of you young cats, and this is not even a slight, this is what you need to realize. LL was hot from the mid 80s, the mid 1980s, up until the early 2000s. It wasn't until the early 2000s where he finally started to fade. And not necessarily in performance, but more so, I guess people stopped checking for him. He also was a cat who went platinum since the mid 80s. Every album. You know how many genres of or phases of hip hop took place from the mid 1980s to the early 2000s, and LL was still relevant? You know what? That alone kind of made me feel like, well, maybe he is the GOAT, right? Because that was my argument all the time. Not so much for him being the GOAT, but I guess I was apprehensive in saying it because he said it. But that was one thing that I was like, think about that. LL lived through Run DMC, Kurtis Blow, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Nas, Biggie, Wu-Tang, Tupac. He was still around. 50, Cannabis, Kool Moe Dee, the battles or whatever. Jay-Z. He lived at the Bad Boy era, the Def Jam era, the Cold Chillin' era, the Rough Riders era, the Ballhead era, the Slam Dance era, the G-Funk era, the South Got Something to Say era. LL was hot through all of that. Rakim wasn't. And Rakim is kind of like the godfather of the way hip-hop is, the way MCs spit nowadays, even LL. Because LL wasn't rhyming the way he, in recent years. The way he rhymes in recent years is more in line with the way Rakim introduced his flow. LL used to rhyme like rappers from the mid-80s, But Rakim ain't last that long. Now, you could say Jay-Z did, but did he? Do true Jay-Z fans still feel the same about Jay-Z lyrically now the way they did when Reasonable Doubt came out? Do they feel like he's even close to being that person? I don't think so. What about Nas? Maybe Nas is too hit or miss. He's still here, but maybe he's a little too hit or miss. And you can easily get distracted like, well, LL ain't been popping in music for a while. It's 2018. The dude just fell off. Maybe what? 2008 maybe? And he been rocking since the mid 1980s? You know what that says? That says to a young kid now, LL was hot. To probably your grandmother, depending on your situation, your mother, I'm saying, man, I'm just saying it's compelling, but let's look at some of those things that were said. Again, I don't know if this was Big Daddy Kane's post, but he posted it, right? Let's go over that again. I'm my favorite hip hop lyricist. So let's just assume that's Big Daddy Kane saying that, right? Big Daddy Kane fell off within that time frame also, where LL was still hot. I'm just saying. Dougie Fresh is my favorite hip hop performer. Jay-Z is the most successful hip hop artist. However, when we say GOAT, we have to look at things collectively. Let's break down LL career. Great lyricist. Let's go over that. LL has always been a great lyricist. Always. His lyrics connect with people. Now, some may say later on it only connected with the ladies, but that's not true. LL, for a very long time, when he started to be labeled as just a ladies rapper, he would always bring on some of the dopest MCs out and do like a posse cut, and he would not sound like he didn't belong on a track with them. 4321, DMX, Redman, Method Man, Cannabis. LL still was dope. I Shot You, Prodigy, Keith Murray, Foxy Brown, Fat Joe. LL's verse was still dope. See what I'm talking about? So it goes without saying that LL has always been a great lyricist. They also have down here a great performer, bar none. Of course, he's LL Cool J. All you gotta do is look at one of his early videos. Like, look at the I'm Bad video. Look at all the energy he has. Look at all the energy in his small appearance in Crush Groove, and just imagine years of somebody performing on stages for their audience. This is a no-brainer. Of course, LL is a great performer. Multi-platinum sales, like I mentioned, probably a little bit, maybe the 2 albums or 1 album past that GOAT album, which goes into the early 2000s, easy. That was the last time he went platinum, but guess what? That was about 2 decades of him going platinum. By that time, he had like 11 or 12 albums and all of them went platinum. And I'm not talking about, oh, well, he got hot on his second album and that made his first album go platinum. No, every time he came out, he went platinum. Every time. LL sells records, or used to, whatever. What else we got here? Numerous number 1 hits, hands down. In the early 2000s, I believe it was the early 2000s or late 90s, they released the greatest hits for LL Cool J called All World. When you listen to that joint, you realize, damn, LL had a lot of hits. And I think he had some after that. After that greatest hits was released. He had so many hits that they have a part 1 and a part 2 to it. That's ridiculous, right? But to be expected for somebody who's a great performer, a great lyricist, and just went platinum with every album, obviously he has a lot of hits. Multiple hits on 1 album, you know. Hip-hop sex symbol. LL Cool J is the poster child for hip-hop sex symbol. Even though obviously, you know, when you're on stage, you're an MC, you're in the public eye, everybody's a sex symbol. Biggie was a damn sex symbol, okay? And he would say, you know, fat and ugly. Like, he would say it all the time. But LL Cool J was that for a lot. I mean, the dude's name is Ladies Love Cool James. If he could do anything, he knew he could be that much a sex symbol. So that's a no-brainer. Victorious in hip-hop battles against many elites. Now, this is where it's true. Well, you know what? For the most part, it is true. Let's say that, right? Because he did battle numerous cats and he did come out on top. I don't believe he won the Cannabis battle. You can sugarcoat it by saying LL won the war, but that's stupid. Battle rap is about bar for bar, song for song, and it's not about your career because there's too many variables in your career, right? You can have a terrible manager, LL can have the best manager. You can have terrible booking, LL can have the best booking, which all can jack up or release or, you know, or downsize your sales or whatever the case may be. You can have terrible shows where the sound cuts off all the time and you never really get to perform and nobody comes out as a result because your shows always have technical difficulties. It's so many ways, but we talking about bar for bar, song for song. So I don't believe LL won his battle with Cannabis. Second Round Knockout is the standout song from that battle, hands down. But you want to talk about early in his career, you want to talk about LL versus Kool Moe Dee. You want to talk about LL versus a couple of people. You want to talk about LL and Jay-Z throwing subliminal shots at each other, even though they never went at it. And I'm inclined to think Jay-Z would have got him. And word on the street is Jay-Z did get him outside of the tunnel. But, this is before camera phones and all of that. But LL been around since the mid-'80s, right? I just named Cannabis. Cannabis didn't come around to the late 90s. So when you hear Cannabis battling LL, you like, why would that happen? When you hear Jay-Z throwing subliminals and LL throwing subliminals at Jay-Z, you like, damn, Jay-Z ain't get hot till 96. Man, you don't hear nobody like, yo, Kendrick got beef with Curtis Blow. You know how laughable that would be to see that title? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, man, don't beat up the old man like that. That's how you would feel. But LL was still relevant. So it was just another battle to us hip-hop fans. We didn't look at it like he too old. He stood his ground with Cannabis, though. He stood his ground with the subliminals with Jay-Z. I'm saying, I shot you. Who shot you? I used to think, is LL talking about Tupac? Tupac said, oh, you old rappers looking flabby and sick? I don't know, man. I'm not saying that's what it was, but the simple fact that it wasn't a landslide victory for Cannabis, it says a lot about LL Cool J and his longevity and how hungry he's remained. Over 3 decades, this dude was like this. 3 decades. What else is here? And again, we're not mentioning the success and stuff like that because we, as far as television goes, because that has nothing to do with anything. That has nothing to do with the greatest of all times as far as MC. So then when we think about the names of the other individuals who we may put up against LL as greatest of all time, do they check those boxes? To be honest, Jay-Z is the closest to checking most of those boxes. To be honest, he is a great lyricist. Yeah, he's not really a sex symbol, but who cares about that? He's not really a great performer either. Never really has been. I mean, just because he's spitting your favorite record don't mean it's a great performance. I seen Jay-Z plenty of times when he was in his heyday. All the dude did was point. But who killed? I didn't care. I thought his music was dope. So I didn't care. I wasn't looking for him to jump around the stage. Rakim. LL lasted way longer than Rakim did as far as relevant new music. People see Rakim, they go to his shows, but they go in there to hear Eric B. and Rakim music. Maybe Know the Ledge. You know what I'm saying? Maybe It's Been a Long Time. Nobody was checking for any new Rakim albums. Nobody. Not after that first comeback where the album, what was the joint? The Seventh Seal, The Master, one of them joints, right? Where Primo did It's Been a Long Time. There are people who like it, don't get me wrong, and we all was anticipating it, but it's not something that gets talked about. Rakim doesn't have more hits than LL. Jay-Z may rival LL in those hit categories, for sure. None of them first of all, Rakim never been platinum as far as I know. Not out the gate. If there's an album that is platinum, it might be paid in full. And that might be retro, sales or whatever. Jay-Z was never, Reasonable Doubt wasn't platinum out the gate. Neither was the second album. Jay-Z, well, the second album I believe did go platinum. Maybe 2 times or 1 or whatever, eventually. A lot of fans consider it one of Jay-Z's worst albums. I don't feel that way, but some do. And Jay-Z really didn't hit big success until the Hard Knock Life album, which went 5 times platinum, and he's never been back to that number. So maybe LL hasn't had albums that go crazy like that, or maybe he's has. How many of these MCs have lasted this long? Nas has been hit or miss. Nas has been, to the point where people feel like he fell off and then he comes back. Nas definitely rivals LL when it comes to lyricism, for sure. Even when it comes to Sex Symbol. There's a lot of shorties, you know this. A lot of shorties love Nas when he dropped. Still do. But is he really on LL's level, though? Is he ripping off his shirt like that custodian on The Simpsons? You know what I'm talking about? The Irish dude. Not that I care to see any of that, but if that's the category this post says, then not really. Or let's take it away from the whole Sex Symbol thing. Nas is not even close to being as successful as far as hits go. Nas has lyricism over LL Cool J. Easy. And Nas defeated Jay-Z, But I think LL's rivals him in comebacks. Because Nas had 2 albums that are considered comeback albums, where it was huge and it was almost like he was, Illmatic Nas again, because that's how people felt about him. Not necessarily in the music, but more so in the talk of the town, right? And that's Stillmatic, and that's Life is Good, where you felt like Nas is back. Why? Because he had some whack and some so-so albums all in between there. Now, LL may have gone platinum with every album for the most part. He may have multiple hits, but he didn't always have, albums that were like, yo, this album is flawless. But he had some come pretty close, and they were his comebacks. Mr. Smith, that's one. Mama Said Knock You Out, that's another one. LL has done this. Even his GOAT album, that was another one. It was like, yo, I can't believe he's still relevant. You hear songs like Airplay. Crazy. Like, yo, that's the same LL from the mid-'80s? Sounding like that over this track? L Ain't Worth Paper. Ask Russell Simmons who put him up in that skyscraper. L Ain't Worth Paper. Ask Russell Simmons who put him up in that skyscraper. Ask some other dudes who made a major. LL, drop a bomb on them. Remain calm on them. Hop in the whip and transform on them. Like, keep the gangster bumping through your system. Like, LL. I think I had got to the point, and I'm not trying to rant. I'm not trying to proclaim to be the biggest LL Cool J fan of all time. But looking at this post had me really thinking. I can put him in these categories as far as being all around artists, hip hop artists, and he finishes a lot of dudes. KRS-One. KRS-One was hot for a minute. KRS-One probably stayed hot until maybe the late 90s. The mid to late 90s, KRS-One was still kind of hot. Right? Never sold as many records as LL. KRS-One definitely did win all of his battles, hands down. But maybe that's his strength. He's a better lyricist. But is he as varied as LL is? See, LL could do all of it. KRS-One wasn't really a dude that can give you a radio single that was respectable. You know what I'm saying? Like, for some cats, that's cool. It's like, yo, I mean, why? He's KRS-One. He doesn't have to do that. Having a radio single isn't the baddest thing in the world. Tell that to M.O.P. Because a radio single does not have to be a party record. Annie Up is about robbing people. And it was a huge radio hit. It was huge in the clubs. So there's Public Enemy records that were huge in the club. They were not party records. LL made party records. Jingling Baby, Around the Way Girl. But then he jump on some joint like I Shot You and Get Busy. KRS-One can't do that. Nas has done it sometimes. But for the most part, he needs to stay off the radio singles. There's his worst enemy because he misses more than he hits. LL Cool J. He really did it all. Really. And I know there's some people who may still feel like, well, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. But you got to look at the totality of his work, the longevity, the different eras that he existed. If you take LL Cool J's albums and spread them all out, it looks crazy. It looks like a time capsule of a dude who was traveling through time. One picture, he got a Kango on and a suit, and he's clearly the 80s. Another one, he got army fatigues on. It's clearly the early 90s. Another one, he's looking like the early 2000s. LL was relevant through decades of music changes. Prince wasn't even relevant that long. Prince was hot in the 80s. Yes, he was around in the late 70s. Yes, he was around in the 90s, and he was still a little hot or whatever. But then nobody was really checking for Prince like that. Nobody was really checking for Stevie like that. Nobody was really checking for Michael like that. But LL still had a grip on hip hop since the mid 80s, to the point where you at least had to listen to it. Because it was guaranteed to be, at least half of it was going to be hot. At least. It took a long time for LL to fall off. I think the album that was like nobody bought it, nobody cared. I can't remember the name of it because he had two. And I believe those last two didn't go platinum. But I think that was his 14th album. So that means the dude had at least 11 to 12 albums where he was still relevant. His singles were still charting. He still got video plays and radio play. That's crazy. So I'm going to mark this date down because it can change. That's how records are. You know, they're meant to be broken. But November 23rd, 2018, Vegas is going on record. LL Cool J is the greatest of all time. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. Also, please know this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And that could be iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or more importantly, SoundCloud.com/HipHopNowPodcast. And until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.